Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon that we have on the 21st of April in the sign of Aries and the Aries equinox and this very powerful energy shift that comes straight after the new moon. So this is quite an important period for all of us, both individually and collectively, of course, because this, without a shadow of a doubt, births something new in our lives. And a part of that new, or maybe something totally new in itself, is not necessarily under our control because this has a nuance of chaotic birth to it. So something that wants to be born needs to be born. All the seeds of intention unconsciously, because this is a highly unconscious energy, were planted over the course of the past couple of years, perhaps. Now those energies will be born and they will gain an expression. And what that is might lead us to the yet upcoming eclipse that we have in the sign of Taurus around the 20th of April. So something is gonna follow this new moon, if you will. So in this sense, it does set up the eclipse one way or another. This also sets up basically this next cycle for all of us because it is an equinox and it is also the beginning of the new astrological year with a new moon, straight a new moon, and a new moon at 0 degrees, which is so very important and so very symbolic in so very many different ways, of course. This 0 degrees of Aries, without a shadow of a doubt, represents the world stage. So something that is, again, I must repeat, going to be born chaotically or out of chaos without all that much control over it, well, it will reach the news probably. Why? Because the ruling planet of Aries, Mars, the ruler of this new moon in that sense, is at 28 degrees of Gemini. So Gemini is news, it is communication, it is the word, it is what's out there, it is public information and the circulation of public information for everyone to know, for everyone to be aware. It is media, mainstream media, social media, internet. You know, internet is something that belongs to more than one sign and is ruled by more than one energy. Maybe a few tens of years ago, it belonged more to the range of Aquarius. It is the new, it is the next, it is futuristic. It was quite, especially, anywhere else other than maybe the prime leading countries in the world. It was quite exotic, in a futuristic way, phenomenon. So it was definitely Uranian. It was definitely Aquarian. But very shortly, it was also very Gemini-like because it was used for interpersonal communication. Gemini, the twins, quite literally, how many people communicated with their siblings over oceans apart, for example. And for example, one family member was in Europe, another family member was in Australia, and the internet came as a huge blessing. And that blessing also transferred some of the internet onto Gemini. And then basically every other sign had a share deal of the internet because the internet is a domain which houses the humanity's collective consciousness. So activities, so everything, you can find every single expression of every single sign on the internet. But you know, the flows of the internet, well, this is where it's governed by Mercury ultimately. Uranus, the technology and the future of it. But then there is Neptune, where the internet houses a lot of spirit, a lot of spirituality, a lot of art, a lot of psyche. And then there is Venus, a tiny bit, because crypto, everything that's crypto, everything that is cyber, and it's pleasureful. Then there is a tiny bit Black Moon Lilith, because the internet also has darker places. So you see, now the internet is not just governed by one planet out there, but quite a lot of other energies. And in correlation, perhaps not very, very directly, every star out there or every celestial body might have a tiny bit to do with the internet. And why am I highlighting the internet so much? Because Pluto, shortly after this new moon, enters into Aquarius, which is a very, very big deal. And again, the internet. Pluto highlights all that is in the internet, all that the internet is, all that the internet produced already, especially in energetic Capricorn, and what is producing in the future. And it highlights us everything, so we know what we need to change. Of course, this collectively speaking more than individually. In its Aquarian transit, the next 20-ish years. Whereas, you know, when it will dive deeply into Aquarius, we will see also its radical and extreme expressions. But that is, of course, for a later horoscope. Yet some of all of what I said is still going to be nuanced, because Pluto does hold an outer sign activity with this Aries new moon. So 0 degrees of Aquarius and 0 degrees of Aries, well, that would represent an outer sign sextile. So it does matter, because this to me says, the outer sign sextile, that it's a kind of power and work aspect. All the seeds of intention that we were planting. And in this sense, let's ignore the short range necessarily of a new moon and look at just Pluto, where that's long term. Pluto is the internet's whole existence and influence over us. So imagine all the seeds of intention that we planted. So now some of those seeds which survived are gonna be born under this new moon. Of course, when I say born, this is just the very first breath, of course. So we might not see the full expression yet, because the full expression might need 6 months to grow. And let's not forget, as I said earlier, indirectly, or for in some cases quite directly, this also leads to the karmic theme of the upcoming eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So this will be quite significant. I'm sorry. So in the following, this new moon has a very suggestive, a very symbolic, and I shouldn't have used this word because Sabian symbol is what follows, so it's symbol of the symbol, but it is highly suggestive truly, because what it suggests is that a woman is rising out of the sea and a seal is embracing her. How absolutely beautiful, and how absolutely in context with everything else that is going on in the sky simultaneously. the woman arising from the sea, the ancient fertility. And let's not forget 0 degrees of Aries. It also means that before that there's 29 degrees of Pisces, the primordial deep sea, the ancient fertility. 29 degrees of Pisces, 0 degrees of Aries is where spirit knocks on the door of matter. Before everything can exist, and mostly in the human world, first it is a thought. First it is a flare of neuron. It is light. It is something but that something is not palpable. That something is deeply Piscean, and it shoots up from the deep. Sometimes that is from the realm of dream. Sometimes that is the realm of deeper chaos. An idea, an epiphany, a suggestion, a thought, something that your mind with along other bits of your being do birth, and it becomes real. In the world of artists, this is basically the bread and butter. But now I don't want to make a fool of myself, but there is that Russian chemist who did put together the periodic table. And it starts with M. And I'm oscillating between two names. That's why I don't want to make a fool of myself. Because I do believe it's Mendeleev or something like that. But his story and how the periodic table was born is so suggestive of this. And remember, the ruler of Aries is in Gemini. This can be for a lot of people, even on the world stage, thought, realized, manifested. Because Gemini is very thought and thoughtful. So anyway, he had all the information he needed. He understood the periodic table. He held the understanding. What he didn't hold, it was the structure, Saturn. Because his mind, Gemini, couldn't put together all the information in Pisces, basically, the unconscious understanding. So how it came together is that after a lot of trials, errors, this doesn't fit, that doesn't match, he went to sleep trying, of course, and in his dream, in that, I don't know which letter of the Greek alphabet to use here, state, he just saw it. He saw it. He woke up and it was there in his mind, crystal clear. And from that day onward, all of us know the periodic table. This is exactly how something can be born out of the depth of chaos, something that serves us in many ways. It is both Pisces, light and dark. Why light? Do I need to say why light? I am probably, thanks to him and his dream, using a laptop. You know what I mean? The elements in the laptop, the processor, silicon stuff, the carbon, transistors, copper. But it also probably takes a lot of lives, like overdose, for example. So you know what I mean? It's so and so. But it all came together from the realm of the spirit, really. And this is where something is gonna be born out of that realm, of that 29 degrees of Pisces. Pisces is also very steadily active at this new moon because its ruler Neptune is there and Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. Saturn, the structure can just appear. So you can imagine Saturn means that the spirit is all that much, excuse my poor words, but serious. It is there to be born. It is everything that has passed Saturn's trials and trials and tribulations, because Saturn was in Capricorn, then it was in Aquarius. So Capricorn 2019 and Aquarius 2020. Of course, 2018 as well included. But where I'm going here is that it did pick up a lot of information. It did pick up a lot of seeds of intention. It almost like listened to the collective will, if you want to call it like that. Why? Because Capricorn is the stage of manifestation. Capricorn is where Saturn watches over the fertile land, so to speak. Then there is Aquarius. That is the future. And Aquarius is Saturn's ancient ruling sign. Before the discovery of Uranus, Saturn used to co-rule Aquarius. So there it is the moment of basically harvest. Not fully, of course, but when it is decided how and when the harvest is going to be taking place, the sign of the future. And then there is Pisces, when the harvest is already consumed. If you know, it is the experience of the harvest. And that is where it's spirit. So Saturn being in the spirit, well, this is where something manifests, something is passed over. Everything that Saturn deemed worthy in its transit in Capricorn and Aquarius, now in its transit in the sign of finalities, ultimately Pisces, it is where Saturn selects. And I'm so sorry to use these non-astrological poor terms, but this is the best way to explain how the process is ongoing. This is where Saturn basically selects what stays within our consciousness, collectively of course, and what disappears in the midst of time. So in the Pisces, where it is where we harvest the gold, the golden memories, the true value. So whatever Saturn deems worthy to be gold, then in Aries that creates a birth of something, because that needs continuation. So this is where the chaotic birth. Or again, this especially with Pluto, Pluto the underworld, Pluto the abyss, brings me to the legend of Tiamat, where she used to be the symbol in ancient Sumeria of the fertility of chaos. Again, going back to the Sabian symbol, a woman rising out of the sea. The sea, salt water, is Tiamat. Her husband, if I'm not imagined, Enki, is the sweet running water. But anyway, Tiamat gave birth to, including to the Sumerians, especially to everything, to all of the Big Bang, so to speak. So, something arising from the sea, the realm of the unconscious, the realm of prophecy, Pisces, the realm of the spirit. I must repeat, both light and dark. Pisces is mutable. Pisces doesn't discriminate. So this is important, because the unconscious houses a lot. So this is why it's so very important. Something is born out of that, and including on the world stage, and it will hit news. Now, we need to ask ourselves, but what exactly might be the end result? Well, on one hand, this new moon holds a quincunx with Haumea. dwarf planet Haumea at 0 degree of Scorpio. So this highlights the element of surprise, but also the fertility. That whatever seed of intention we put in there, well, now we are gonna harvest it. And this is the element of chaos where Mars is in Gemini. Remember, where Mars, the signature energy of the new moon, well, it holds a square, not a very tight, but still a square to Neptune. A big disillusionment, but it also highlights that all the random, chaotic, self-defeating, not so favorable seeds of intention that we might have also placed there, well, they might also come into existence. They are like, you know, a beautiful plant, a flower grows, but also a bit of weed along it that we have to pluck out. This is the square with Neptune. So we need to make sure that whatever is born stays clean and healthy and has nourishment. So this is the element of disillusionment. Whatever bad habits, whatever that Pluto finishes up in Capricorn does not stay with us in this new year, new cycle. And another element which is not directly related to this new moon, but still it happens around the same time, so it's very important. Pluto will actually move into that 0 degrees of Aquarius, where it will activate the meeting, the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which took place in December 2020. The importance of that. So this new beginning, this new birth, well, on one hand, this is also like before the phenomenon of the new moon perfects, there is a very, very, very slim hair slim sickle which cuts. That is when the moon is the sharpest. Just a few, let's say, hours before a new moon phenomenon, when we don't want to bring with us into the past, from the past, we want to bury into the past, we use the sickle and just cut the life support. Cord cutting especially, it is very, very good for that. So there is that part, and Pluto makes sure that at this new moon equinox, let's not forget, and we'll get to that in a moment, it's gonna be extra powerful. This cord cutting, this elimination element is powerful, but again, that's just one side of things. The plant or whatever is growing, that's where what we need to focus on. Now, also at the time of this new moon, look at how many planets are in the sign of Aries. So there is the Sun and Moon, Mercury, Chiron, Jupiter, Vesta, Aries, and Salasha as well. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of new. That's a lot of initiative. That's a lot of focus. This can be, as I said, the unconscious. Something is born from the unconscious. It can be a bit assertive. It can be wild. It can be untamed. It can be quite, you know, impactful in even unwanted ways. I don't want to use heavy words here, but Aries, the rebel, Vesta is the sacred flame, but it will protect the creation. Chiron and Jupiter, the wound, and also Jupiter in the sign of Aries, fighting for the self. Whatever is born out of this energy fights for its existence. So that's why there is a strong element that how much is it under our control? And not all that much, because the ruler is squared ring Neptune, a bit drowned. It cannot do all that much, but it can have control over the mind, and that's a very, very positive thing. And speaking about Gemini, well, the ruler of Gemini. Mercury is in Aries' sign, and vice versa. Mars is in uh, Gemini sign. So there is a strong synergy between the planets. And the Aries energy is backed up by Saturn in Pisces, the stability of it, the stability of the spirit. What needs to be done is going to be done, and the element of fatedness of the karmic element. And going back to the Sabian symbol, where I said a woman is rising out of the sea, the legend of Tiamat, the ancient fertility, the water, the unconscious, something new being born, something even out of its own will. But then there is also the part of the seal embracing her. The seal, the sea spirit, the ancestors. Um, the seal is like the ambassador between the sea, the ocean, and the land. Benevolence, loyalty, fidelity, the male element, the male guardian, the, the dog of the sea. How can I say this? So, feel the symbol of the seal as you would a dog. A guardianship, a guidance, a benevolence, intelligence, intelligent water, empathy, nurturing. Speaking about nurturing, I have to go back here a little bit because another aspect, and this is like a direct aspect, this is also very, very exact. The new moon holds an opposition to Ceres at 0 retrograde, 0 degrees of the sign of Libra. Now, this can play out in a number of different ways. One of them is protest. A lot of strikes. Why? Because Jupiter empowers Aries. And there is Mars, the ruler of Aries, and the sign of Gemini, and slightly anoretic. That means communication and rebellious Gemini, third decan of Gemini, co-ruled by Uranus. But then there is Venus, the ruler of Libra, in Taurus, conjunct the North Node, conjunct Juno, yes. Food, price of food. I cannot provide for my family. The value of my work, well, I don't feel it. I'm not satisfied with this partnership. Venus in the sign of Taurus, but then Uranus being in the sign of Taurus, rebellion. But the truth of it, Ceres food. Now, food means income. Food doesn't, and especially Ceres in the sign of Libra. Libra air sign, inanimate sign. It doesn't have to be classical food. Income is food. Support is food. Right, justice. Um, I don't need to actually say anything more. Right and justice, equality, equity, Libra. All of that is Libra. All of that is Venus in Libra. And Ceres in Libra. That is food. To receive rights. So I think you kind of understood where I'm going with this. Protests, movements, fights in court, and triumph even and victory. Why? Jupiter. And Jupiter is the planet of justice also. Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Saturn has also a bit to do with justice. Pisces, the justice of spirit. Karmic justice, enforcing other expressions of justice. Ceres. So yeah, this can be quite assertive. This can disruption in transport, Mars. Disruption in food, food shortages. So, because of Mars, also, food can be information, internet, shortages of internet, restrictions in the internet. So, this can signal a disruption. But with Venus conjunct the North Node and Juno, value, financially there is the birth of a crisis. Saturn, well, it is the consequence of, and what of it's all of us to contemplate at this moment and at the moment of this new moon. And Saturn with Pluto, along with Pluto's activities, not that they are speaking to one another, but their symbolism, we have a lot to process because, as I said, Pluto activates 0 degrees of Aquarius. We need this for a healthy worldview to see that the price of food is so ridiculous that it is series starving us, rebellion for food. The cost of living, Venus conjunct the North Node in Taurus, and an eclipse happening there. Crisis in the cost of living. Now, Uranus in the sign of Taurus is a signature of the Great Depression in the 30s, 40s, something like that in the United States. The feeling of it, the vibe of it is exactly the same. But Ceres says that is not necessarily physically lived, but with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, it's just the poverty of the spirit. What is the poverty of spirit? Everything is on interest. Everything is you wash my hand, I wash yours. Everything is on profit, capitalism at its finest. So that means the spirit is not there. The spirit does not want to exchange itself anymore. So that's a spiritual poverty, which is reflected by the ridiculous, unfair Jupiter and New Moon and Aries, unfair Chiron, the wound, cost of living. So this does trigger a collective value crisis that births a solution. Because, the eclipse taking place in, you know, where the North Node at the time of the eclipse is at, I do believe, this 0 degrees of Taurus. So let us check. Let's go to the 20th. Yes, it is 0 degrees of Taurus, and the North Node is at 4 degrees of Taurus. So it is very, very relevant. It is very relevant because Venus is here now. Venus is here where the eclipse is going to be on the 20th of April. So I'm going back, sorry. There. So, yep. Venus and Juno also partnerships. And Juno's is relevant because what I feel, maybe all my partners feel. And my partner is not necessarily someone who I live with, because especially I'm single, so I don't. And a lot of people are like me. Partner is everyone in your life, a neighbor, relatives, friends, people who share Taurus common values, your life with, your physical life with. For some people that includes partner, for other people, no, you get where I'm going. But that means whatever happens to my value changes, it reverberates in them. Like it or not, willingly, unwillingly, my behavior also changes their behavior. So this chains. This really, really chains. Because again, Juno, Venus, and the North Node. North Node collective future. And Taurus values, simplicity of values, going back to the roots. But that roots which are permanent. So this is before a massive Uranus in the sign of Taurus financial revolution. But again, we must not forget the seal, the ancestral guidance. The seal has a Taurian part of it. The seal reminds me of the planetoid Sedna, being in the sign of Taurus and heretic, Sedna symbolism, where her sacrifice, she did not want to marry someone who her father ordered her to, so she in defiance married a dog. Again, the dog. And, you know, Sedna was cast to be thrown into the sea, and she hung on to the boat with her fingers. They were ordered to be chopped off. Of course, she drowned and became a sea deity, and her fingers became sea creatures. And the seal, I do believe, is a sea creature. So yes, again, Sedna symbolism with the Sabian symbol and Sedna's energetic position trine Pluto. This is important. So Sedna sends her blessing, baby, Pluto. Her sacrifice is not the seal. The ancestral guidance is there. And then Uranus in the sign of Taurus, financial value revolution. This is important, I do believe. And I am just looking at my notes, what else I wanted to mention, and of course the equinox. The equinox, the veil between the worlds is that much thinner. The element of fatedness is that much more important. And Saturn in Pisces makes this that much more fated. Pluto and Heretic that much more fated. Sedna trine Pluto that much like I can really just go on with this. It is fated strongly. So maybe the fated part is indirectly under our control, where Saturn in Pisces, we had this in our control in the past, our past actions, the seeds of intention of, and Saturn in Pisces, morality and all of that, karma, like proper karma, all our good deed, all our good gestures. But this is where Mars also thoughts. Anyway, the intention is what matters really in Pisces. So our good intent, if that was there, we are okay. We're very, very okay. Because that's the fated element. Our good deeds reverberate back on us. And this new beginning, so the 0 degrees of Aries, the first breath, well, that is also extremely important. And remember the world stage. And then there is Venus conjunct the North Node. What needs to happen for our future, for our path forward, for our financial value, material, physical body progress. For a lot of people, of course, I imagine this might play out as a Jupiter squaring Pallas Athena surprise pregnancy. For other people, still, it means that, you know, they had fertility problems for a lot of years and they might have given up. Saturn, Nana, the dream is not dead. One last try, but where it's you make it. So for a lot of people, and Uranus in Taurus, technology, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, Pluto going into the power of technology. It solves the fertility issue. So for a lot of people, this might be encouragement to go forward one last shot. But this might come Pluto and Heretic in Capricorn after you already given up. So you find it hard to motivate yourself one last time, but it might be worth a try. And Venus investing into it. Juno, the partner comes with the good news. Or the happiness of the partner, it gives you strength. The happiness of something gives you strength. Yes, this can be quite that kind of energy, but the fatedness to it and the seal, the element of love, and even as I said, Tiamat, the primordial mother, the primordial soup. This is where something massive, massive, massive shifts. And all of March is like that, really. All of spring is like that. Financial change globally, collectively. So anyway, it will still hit the news, but remember, Mars square Neptune, the ruler squaring Neptune, the illusion, the wool over smoke and mirrors. We must make the discernment what is real and what is not. We must know our truth, Jupiter, and our wounds make sure that we are in truth. Whatever wounding we received recently, that is the salt which makes sure that we know what not to do. So we have a lot to be grateful for if we truly. So in the following, I would like to say just a couple of words for each and every sign out there, what this new moon, because it's so fated, might be all about. And the equinox, of course. The equinox, when the veil between the worlds is that much thinner, when we need to set this new intent, this new beginning, the new dream, all the old dream resurrected, reborn, resurrection energy with Pluto. The essence, the seedling is that old something that is fated within us, and a soul programming with. That's why the dream doesn't die, but the new modus operandi is born. New operandi, Mercury. Mercury is always the modus operandi in Aries, the head. This is going forward. So, and Mercury actually conjuncts the new moon, if you wish. It's not a tight conjunction, but it is a conjunction. Absolutely. Mercury is at 5 degrees of the sign of Aries. So it's very, very forward moving. It's really, really good. So ambitious, courageous, even sometimes assertive words sometimes, of course. But Neptune, the disillusionment, is positive. We need to keep the dream ongoing, but in the form it wants to be born at. We cannot be, I'm so sorry to use this, we cannot be control freaks. Because, if this new beginning is like a child, a woman, and most depiction of the Sabian symbol draw this woman as a pregnant woman arising from the sea, the seal, of course, the guardian is there embracing her, that's okay, but still the something being born and in the infant stages of it, a lot to do with fertility. So as a good parent, we have to allow what is born to have its own way, not to be control freaks, if you know what I mean. We are parent to this. And again, I must repeat, for a lot of people, it's a thought that is gonna be realized in the coming months when Jupiter enters Taurus in May. Venus is in Taurus, so that's also important. It is gonna be realized in the coming months. So, and speaking about being realized, Pluto will head back into Capricorn later on when it goes retrograde. So it will go back this degree again, and that's Earth sign, that's manifestation. So the thought can be realized. So I'm so sorry for this. In the following, a few words of how this new moon may affect the life, or better said, the reality of each sign. So for Aries, being in your sign, a powerful moment of self-realization. When you know what I said about it's not really up to you, we don't have all that much control over it. Perhaps maybe for you guys and you guys only, in not all, but in smaller ways, it does depend on you. It does depend on your want, on your feeling, on your mood, and all on your recent past experiences, which showed you a lot about you. Which showed, and this Mars retrograde, uh, December, January, February, and until now, showed you a lot about you through other people, through communication, through feedback. So yeah, maybe for you guys, there is a lot of what you bring onto the table here, and a lot that you want to eliminate, a lot what you don't want to bring to the table here as well. So this does give a small degree of element of control, and which is needed for you guys. So who do you want to become in this new cycle? This is where you have a saying in this. This will affect so very many areas of your life, but this is where it's up to you. The new and improved version of you, where the dream is lived already, The new you is not a dream anymore. You are it. Tag you're it. So this means make sure you don't behave like the past self, but make sure to provide the element of new, where the element of new is basically what and who do I want the want to be. For the sign of Taurus, for guys born on and girls born under the sign of Taurus, this is quite deep because this is 12th house. Also, it's deeply unconscious. So for you guys, the unconscious part is all that much highlighted. But I want to believe and I want to think that it's the benevolent expression of the unconscious. So it's that much outside of your control. And 12th house, the spirit, the faith, the embodiment of that faith. And what you do with that faith, with that spirituality. This can be a powerful moment of healing, of acceptance, of purge, but one which is like when you burst a pus, a pimple of, infection. One moment, but it's clean. In an intense moment, it's done after. It's cleaned out. That might be the negative expression. Or not even negative. The not so delightful expression. But what follows is pure delight ultimately, because it's out. And I'm doing my own thing. I'm clean of this. And that pus, it's either a trauma or a misaligned belief. Where the misaligned belief shows you itself as it says, look, I'm manifesting because you believe me. If you want me to stop believing me, in me. May that be an illness. May that be something limitative. But chances are it's the opposite, where you achieve something with faith, with belief, with spirituality, spiritual practice, positive psychology, something that is the realm of ultimately 12 houses in the faith. So when you achieve something and you're a Taurus, you say, I'm definitely adding this to my life and making it grow. That may be a wonderful new belief, a wonderful new spiritual practice, a wonderful new something. And it can be a karmic debt repaid one way or another to someone, family, or an ex, or something from the deep past. Closing but becoming in a beautiful way. Moving on to the sign of Gemini. Well, for you guys, it is almost like a new modus vivendi, but in a social sphere. For you guys, this might be you stepping into living a dream. When I say dream, don't understand it necessarily all that fancy, as in miraculously. A new stage, a new element in your life, a new beginning, really, to be totally honest with you, but one which is not just your own psychology, but life meets you there, as in a new job for some Geminis, a new friend, a new way of living, relocation, new project, new colleague, something new, but which basically gives you a state of fresh normality, if that makes even some sense to Geminis out there, where you have a grip over your reality, if that kind of makes sense. Because that new beginning, that element of new, that new person, that new whatever came into your life, refreshes you, as in it makes you feel your own power. It makes you feel your own grip on your social sphere, on your basically perceived reality. But on the other hand, for other Geminis, this can mean quite the opposite, where they cut something out from their lives totally. They close the door to a social element, to a friend, group of friends, social circle, and that causes them to embrace a new daily routine, a new anything to replace that which they closed the door to. And this is positive. This is good. This is where the Gemini finds themselves delighted to have time, to have so much to do, but where it's them who add the element of magic to it. Whatever activity they engage in, it's fun. It is them. They find themselves being able to immerse into this. And this is what makes it so very, very positive. And whatever change happens ultimately, either something new and fresh shakes up their lives in a positive way, or they cut something out, and that is the blessing harvested, regardless of what it is. Well, it reflects a deep value change where something within their value system matured. So they're living a matured, a stable version of their lives, but the fun factors, the fun elements are exactly in the measure that they need. So this gives them the sense of control, where perhaps this chaos ultimately actually gives them power, gives them control later on in their lives. Moving on to natives born under the sign of Cancer, um, for you guys, this might be a new soul calling, or better said, a new way of doing it, a new feeling, a new vibe, a new approach, even a new worldview, which makes you see everything different. So even things in your life are the same as they always used to be, but something that happens deep within you makes you see everything different. It's almost like when someone receives either a telescope or a microscope. Well, you can imagine the onion or the leaf of the plant, the blood, the water from the river, or whatever it is, or telescope. That planet, the moon, the clouds, whatever you're looking at, well, it's the same as it always used to be, but you get where I'm going. Your perspective of it, it is almost miraculous, especially the first time when you're using it, when you're discovering it. Now, this is how something, because that microscope or telescope is what triggered this new worldview or new way of approach. Well, that is what adds the element of new and fresh to it. Your life may be the same old, but something that is happening within you makes you feel it all that new and fresh, and of course, let's hope delightfully. Now, at the same time, some natives born under the sign of Cancer might already have had some new beginning not so long ago, but this is where this new beginning is only lived now. So something catches up with them. Their soul catches up with them. As in, they done this new beginning mentally, physically, they executed it, and now the soul installs itself in, oh, I'm so happy that I'm in this position, that I managed, and let's not forget Pluto, that I sacrificed or cut out certain bad things, people, habits, routines, thoughts, mindset, vision, faith, something from my life. detoxed myself, so to speak. And this might also affect their family life, of course, in the most positive ways. Now, natives born under the sign of Leo, they have a lot of things to look forward to because this new moon can come as a fresh approach, maybe to a new study. Especially young Leos might find their new calling study-wise to be students somewhere. For others, Leo natives still, it is a place, a project in a foreign country, in a foreign business, in something foreign, something more exotic, something more which would require travel or intellectual engagement. Maybe a course, maybe a degree, maybe just spending time with people from that range, from that sphere, from the intellectual sphere. Maybe for others, research work, you never know. For others, reconnecting with family from abroad. And this bringing travel opportunities. For other natives still, finding a place that calls them to travel. For some natives born under the sign of Leo, it might actually resume just to this. A place calls them, and they have to find the resources, the means to follow. For other natives still, this might be quite spiritual in nature, where just similarly for Cancer natives, something enriches their worldview, their spirit, their take on life, basically. For others still, this may be a course of justice, something that has to do with legal or justice work, which ultimately adds to a more positive or realized future, whatever the theme of that course of justice or official matter is. Now, moving on to the sign of Virgo, natives born under the sign of Virgo, this might be quite a significant new moon because either this produces a moment of deep healing, this can be either corporal or psychological, but something is released. So that means a sigh, but when I say a sigh of relief from your whole being, really, not just physically, especially if you release a trauma or something happened. Or something happens in their financial life. The loan is granted. They find the financial means to get what they need or they needed. Something comes to them financially. Even if, let's say, it's something negative, and when I say negative, as just polarity, as in don't do not invest, do not make this move. That ultimately, how positive is that? That's divine protection. That's where Virgo natives, being Mercurials, they were warned that this is not a good idea and they saved the day. So expect either a form of divine protection or exactly the opposite. Something is figured out finally, and this is where later on in April and May, this is the plan is born. I'm executing it. I'm already doing it. I'm investing or anything like that. And for business uh, activist Virgo natives, this might be quite a prosperous week for a new moon, actually an equinox, actually month and 3 months of brainstorming, but where the idea is executed immediately. For Virgo natives, this is quite strange and rare because they do love to overthink. So moving on to the sign of Libra and natives born under the sign of Libra, this is going to be quite an interesting month because Aries is your opposite sign. What is being born here? A new partnership, a new contract, a new job, a new one-on-one alliance, a new collaboration. You doing something leading you to a new situation where there is bound to be a new person. But let us not forget the elimination factor. Did you close a contract, relationship, alliance, job, friendship, anything where there was a void? That void can be filled. Something new is born. Or with Saturn in Pisces, not that it has something to do with you as Libras. Better said, this has something to do with all of us, regardless of our signs. Pisces, the past, X. Maybe you will get a new offer from an ex, a rebirth, a resurrection of a relationship you long thought lost, or, but of course, for most, I do believe it's something fresh and new that changes the picture. But it might not be just, a relationship, because you can imagine many natives born under the sign of Libra are in a committed relationship, are married, so to speak. So they might experience a deep change in behavior. Their partner brings changes to the table, and that affects them as a change, if you know what I mean. Of course, for most, it's a new beginning, a new adventure, a new idea, a new life, a big life change in the life of their partner, for example. But for others, still, it is just a behavioral change, a value change, which is, lived through them and their partner, of course. And the essence, what I forgot to mention, I'm making it sound all that positive, but it can also be quite, challenging, where you just say, you and your partner realize, we cannot live this way anymore. We cannot continue this anymore. And by this, I don't mean the relationship, is what you guys do as modus vivendi, for example. Like, let me use, both of you guys are very, very big lovers of a fast food chain or a restaurant or of something, and you spend there. And this not with the financial restrictions that are upcoming. Well, it has nothing to do with your love, but both you and your partner will have to change this behavior, and it will be difficult for both of you in different ways. So this is where you guys have to support each other in common hardships. You're in it together, but it's hard in different ways. This was the best example how hardships can come both for you and your partner, but which are ultimately positive. This is positive. This is not negative. Moving on to the natives born under the sign of Scorpio, well, for them it also brings an element of change to the table, where it is their either modus vivendi, like their way of living, and this comes with an element of the past, where they might have promised certain things to themselves. I'm gonna do it when. I'm gonna start when. I'm gonna, but where there is a when. And that when is either a date and time they said to themselves, or official, to, I don't know, to a company. I'm gonna renovate my home at this date. Call me back and we'll talk, negotiate. And you get the call and you realize that, yep, time is up and you need to make an important decision. But for others, it's more spiritual, more karmic. You negotiated with the divine. I'm gonna start getting into shape when. Now, this is where I get this job, I get this salary, I get time, I get whatever it is, and you got it. And you realize in yourself that, yep, time is here for me to fill my end of the bargain. So, as I said, The obligation comes from the self, and it's something you want to do. It's not easy, but you want to do it. Now, for other Scorpio natives, this is where this also involves adaptation to a situation. Like, for example, something comes from the job and it changes your schedule, routine, family life. It also affects your partner. What can you do? You have to adapt to it. And you start seeing all the good in this readaptation. You stop seeing the discomfort and you start seeing all the positive that it's starting to bring to your life. There you go. This can be also physical healing. I'm gonna go to the doctor when, and I'm gonna get this looked at. The when is here. For other Scorpio natives, well, this can represent where they had this financial speculation perhaps, and now the conditions are met. So what do? Do you keep it a dream? Do you make it real? The choice is yours. There's no right or wrong. It's just a question of preference and inner feeling. What do you do? Not an easy option, but it's ultimately constructive. Whatever you decide will make sure how your story plays out, just like in an RPG game. Both lead to the same, both are pleasurable in their own way, but it's still such a subtle decision, isn't it? Moving on to the natives born under the sign of Sagittarius, well, this new moon can bring either a love story, a falling in love, sudden attraction, sudden, you know, sensuality. Maybe for those natives who don't necessarily wish to have children, maybe you should be careful, even if the adventure, even if the temptation knocks on the door. Absolutely fine. It is going to be wonderful and it might birth a wonderful new relationship. Why not? But if you don't want children, be careful. Because there, Venus conjunct North Node, there is fertility and fertile energies in the air here. So other Sagittarian natives, it can be a hobby. It can be, especially those who are parents, something that really sparks up your life, but it's happening in your life with your child. You support your child in something, or your child achieves something, starts something, comes back. Mom, dad, how wonderful. And you start out of nowhere feeling, wow, is this where you're the proud parent kind of feeling? Is this the proud parent kind of mood? How wonderful it makes me feel. Anything I could have done in my life would not feel this sweet. For some Sagittarius natives is gonna be the sweetness of this, especially if you're parents. For others, now of course depending on your chart and your setup, your child got out of a very dangerous situation and is getting better and is okay. This is the sweetness in itself, that phew, a new beginning. Finally, my child is in the right. And my child's new beginning, I know now that is going to be a good one, a positive one, because he's in the right setup, mood, mentality, finally. So, this can be a big honey for some Sagittarian natives, but this can also bring a new project, new financial situation, fortune. If your creativity pukes out something, and I'm so sorry to use this, mentally, emotionally, mind vision, you meet with group of friends and you mess around with ideas and laugh and jokes, and a business idea is born from that joke and everyone's chaotic mind, mental vomit, an actual Mendeleev, the periodic table, remember that, is born out of that. Well, the group of friends would be highly silly not to do something with it, with that miraculous manifestation, that something that you guys channeled. You know what I mean? Moving on to the sign of Aquarius, well, this can mean a lot of action, a lot of business opportunities that knock on the door, but these business opportunities are not easy. These mean negotiations, these mean talks, brainstorming, burning neurons. Again, there is no right or wrong, there is just how do I maximize this? But how do I manage this? How do I make the workload be correlating or rewarding with the pay with whatever the when I say pay, it doesn't have to be real pay. You're in it for something. The reward has to be there. This can also mean travel plans, moving around, being very, very busy, arranging stuff. If you have siblings, if you have connections with siblings, and when I say siblings, not necessarily just genetically, even souls who you consider your, for example, I don't have any biological siblings, but I do have a soul sister, Anka, so yes, for me, my third house usually means her, whatever, and cousins and stuff like that. So communication, invitations, plans, projects from that area of life. And, this can also represent you solving certain things very, very quickly. So it is busy period for Aquarian natives. And moving on to natives born under the sign of Pisces, this is where something that has to do with either a deep soul level value or quite a material value, something came from inheritance or something that you can actually even physically invest. The feeling is there, the feeling is born, the how should I say, the general soul vision is there. So this is second house, of course. So what can I say? This can also be financial. This can also be value. This can also be, long-term stability, where I want to live, what I want to do long-term, who I want to share my life long-term, and not necessarily love, even though it can be included. Because if you're a couple, then that's the place, then that's the city, that's everything that's not human, or neighbors, nice neighbors. But that can be second house. Where do we want to live our lives? Because our lived life is the value, isn't it? The pleasure of the five senses. Where do we want to delight our five senses? So, for Pisces natives, it is, how should I even say, a big soul searching energy, but in not the realms of the soul. The opposite. In the realm, how do you find the soul in matter? So it's nice, it's lovely, but it's hard. Even for Pisces natives, who are expert at finding the soul, even where one would not suspect. But you might be searching for something big. That job, that place, that car. Why not? That wedding dress, that. But you need it to be soulful. So, second house stuff. So, I would like to leave it at this. I'm so very, very sorry if this was way too long or if this was very boring, but I do sense that this is highly, highly karmic, this is highly prophetic, this is going to be relevant for a lot of people, and as I said, the change is in the air. But this is also new birth, ending and new birth, and equinox, and magical. We cannot forget that the nodes of the moon are close to shifting signs in July. So these are the first degrees. And the first degrees is exactly the fresh, the new, that which, the sprout. And Venus conjunct the North Node, cherry blossom. The beauty of the flower, the beauty of the sprout. So we must make sure to include a lot of beauty, and including physical beauty. Like, I would like to leave you with a small guidance, a small practical guidance that works like a charm. And this is something you can do at every time you're getting close to a new moon. New moon before, a week before, at the time of the new moon, and of course the day after, where you project beauty and admiration onto everything. You adapt an attitude where mentally you put the autopilot on simply admiring creation. You have, let's say you have to go to the store, you have to go to the shop. There's a path you have to follow. Everything that you see, look at the beauty in it and bless it. Be grateful that you are perceiving it. Do this for a week, and I will guarantee you almost, if you do it honestly, not just like, if there's no heart in it, of course it won't, but if there is at least a touch of heart in it, reality will mirror it back to you. It will. It will. So see, no, see the beauty in everything. Look at the beauty, the whatever beauty is in the situation, in everything. And that's when you invite this realm, the element, the sphere of Venus into your life. And when she's conjunct the North Node, oh, this works so very well. With Aries, it works so very well. Why? Because it's almost like you're playing an erotic game with quantum physics. Seeing beauty is being beauty. You know, what you see sees you back. And who are we to judge what has spirit and what doesn't? Maybe, and not maybe, because there are cultures in the world, I think in India, places in India where this is like for real, like real. If I start blessing my computer, maybe this machine that I'm looking at right now, and I start investing some emotion into it, not in a possessive way, you know, as in money and emotion. I appreciate you. It will do things it shouldn't, and I experienced this all my life, so no one can come and tell me it's not the case. Who says that only apparently living things can have spirit and energy and consciousness? So with this being said, if you project beauty, Venus, onto everything, you almost force, and reality doesn't have a choice here, arrogantly, incorrectly, allow me to say, maybe the universe might not have all that much choice there, but to reply with the same manner. At this time, when equinox, new moon, Venus conjunct North Node, Vesta conjunct North Node, do this, especially if you're looking for love. Now, we have to work with what we have. Let's not forget Aries. Aries likes physicality. Aries likes love to be real. Venus in the sign of Taurus likes love to be felt. Five senses, but also, you know, at least decent standards, whatever that means to you. But Saturn in the sign of Pisces also, you cannot go just with the body. You need the morality at least to be totally there. And then we can work with it, if you know what I mean. So this is really, really good time to find someone, even in that sense. Now, on the larger context, we must also not forget that we have to wish upon world peace and food for everyone and safety for everyone, because Ceres opposes this new moon, so nurture is not going to be there for everyone. Even if that nurture is spirit nurture, love, protection, the feeling of something, we must not be selfish and keep our nurture for ourselves. We have to share. If you're an artist, share your songs. If whatever it is that you do, share and don't put price on it. But because perhaps at the Ceres opposition, people need that food that you offer. So thank you everyone for listening. Again, I apologize for making this so long. Thank you for all the love, all the support, all the beautiful comments, for making me feel valuable, and for, of course, keeping me alive. And until next time, bye for now.